Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 81. Why are aunts expecting her to go to magic school at this point? They should know it's not necessary. She probably won't want a job requiring a huge variety of spells. An entire issue before this happened because it's known that she's the most powerful witch, so they know she doesn't need magic school anymore. Salem says this won't last more than a week. Landra thinks Sabrina's gonna flunk out of magic school if she doesn't keep showing up. Who cares? And Shinji talks to Sabrina in the predictable ways. The argument is predictable, why should I care? It's satisfying when she finally calls him out on how repetitive he is. 4 Blades Day, 4 Blades Day, is that all you ever talk about? I had already gotten sick of it. It's mostly just them mentioning their plan and not doing anything. Why would the Queen alone be able to make Sabrina not put under surveillance anymore? Wouldn't the witches in the council have warped her back to the observation cell as soon as they found out she was gone? I wish I saw how the Queen convinced them to just leave her alone after she went behind the council's back and didn't get fired. Wouldn't the witches in the council be able to cast a spell to hear all of this? Shinji naturally says that she should be training herself to use her magic to its full potential. It's hard for me to imagine that she could ever get any better, so it seems like a waste of time to me. And she says that he's selfish because he only cares about using her, and he should care that she went through a horrible experience. He correctly points out that she's being selfish too. Predictably, she breaks up with him after they reminded me of Sonic and Sally calling each other selfish in their breakup. Every time there's a plot like this, it's boring and thankfully never lasts. Didn't Danny Phantom do this too? He gave up his ghost powers for a while. Sabrina hates having to get dressed the mortal way because there's buttons she can't reach. And she's gonna be late for school. She hates having to walk to school in a blizzard, and she doesn't know her own locker combination. Unrealistically, everyone in her class laughs at her for not knowing it and being unable to get her books. Why did she even keep any books in her locker instead of having them in their backpack? She asks to share with someone other than Shinji, and realizes that she's never talked to Madeline before, and looks forward to making another mortal friend. Shinji wonders if he can even trust her anymore, which is exaggerated melodrama. And Sabrina laughs at Madeline's funny story and agrees to go to a juice shop with her. Later on, Hilda says Sabrina is making new mortal friends, and Zelda says that Landra's being ignored. Hilda says that this isn't fair, and Sabrina appreciates how much work it must have taken to make a smoothie the normal way. It's sweet that she's already forgiving him. Landra is mad at her, going out of her way to bitch at Sabrina in front of Madeline, and outright calls her a mortal, even though she lectured Sabrina on being selfish. Apparently she only cares about that when her selfishness is inconveniencing her. Landra wastes a lot of my time looking like the bad guy and tells Sabrina she can't pretend that an inconvenience doesn't exist. Sabrina wastes time and thinks that she has nothing left to hide from Harvey. She gets hit with a basketball, but that has no consequences, and she tells Harvey that she wants another shot with him, even though she still misses Shinji. So I feel bad for Harvey. He says that he always felt like Sabrina was part of an inside joke that he didn't get, and he just wants her to be open with him. She says she's ready to move on with her life and has no secrets, and kisses them as the story ends. I doubt this will last. Wow, the comic really is depressing, full of hope spots. If I immediately accurately predicted that. Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 82. Hilda's tired of humoring Sabrina because she hasn't used magic in over a month. Somehow, Wizards Weekly states that ignoring your magic can be detrimental to your health. This is nonsense. Sabrina thinks that ever since she stopped using magic, she's been so relaxed. Naturally, because she isn't worried about someone finding her out. Harvey is hiding something because he isn't ready for a serious relationship. Yeah, he's a loser and she deserves better. After Salem guilts Sabrina and says he'll leave, she agrees to hear him out. He has the audacity to ask her to turn him back to normal. It's immediately obvious that both of them would get punished for it if anyone found out. So he shouldn't even bother. You'd think someone would see that happen the second she did it. because if witches aren't always being spied on, how do they expect to keep them from running amok in the mortal world? How do they find out that mortals get exposed to magic at all? If they're only monitoring what spells they cast, how are they supposed to know the context around it? And Galena knew about the context of spell freeze because she knew she didn't cast it right. So how would this have no consequences? It's obvious that Salem hasn't changed because he's still glorifying his days as a villain. He even said that her being the worst person in the world is a good thing to him. After saying he just wants thumbs, he suddenly says that she can't possibly turn her back to normal. Somehow she immediately falls for the reverse psychology act. How can she possibly be so easily manipulated? Couldn't she just give him thumbs? Why is she even considering doing this for him after the traumatizing imprisonment she went through without even doing anything wrong? Somehow she decides to help him by combining spells, which obviously every witch would be able to do in every other part of the series. For example, if any witch has ever in the franchise warped to a place without wearing the same clothes as before, they've combined spells because they've not only teleported but also changed their outfit. I'm pretty sure Sabrina did that in the 90s comic when she warped back to Michelangelo times. She changed her outfit too. So she researches magic and Hilda doesn't know what she's up to and hopes it's nothing bad. Too bad she's too dense to catch on. What else would Salem ask her to do? After Salem wastes time accusing Sabrina of tricking him with false hope, he gets turned into a man with no clothes, even though she was powerful enough to change him into a human in the first place. And then she has to give him clothes made of their curtains. You know, when Salem turned himself into a human in the animated series, he had clothes, so why have this limitation? There's a reason Sabrina would never be written to do this for him permanently. After they briefly mistake Salem for an intruder, Hilda tells Sabrina the obvious, and Sabrina shows dumb faith in Salem. You know, there's no reason she couldn't just make him a regular mortal human. Then this would be completely fine. If she thinks he wants to be normal, she'd just make him mortal. Just turn him into a cat alone wouldn't get rid of his powers. So I always assumed that another part of the spell on him was getting rid of his powers, which, come to think of it, is combining two spells together. I guess only a few of the witches cast that spell and another casts the cat spell. She's grossed out with Zelda for flirting with Salem. He immediately makes it clear that he's still evil because after a while of talking, he wants revenge on the dog down the street. He's just told to take a shower because he smells like kitty litter. And I see the amusing side of him as a human trying to lay on her feet at night, when that hurts because he weighs 200 pounds. He doesn't know where to sleep. The couch, of course. And he's too tall to enjoy it. Too bad he doesn't just ask the ants to lengthen the couch with magic or create a new bed. Because he's an idiot, instead he has a hurting back in the morning. Now, if logic was in the story at all, then the reason he didn't create a bed of his own is that he doesn't have powers. He's told to get his own breakfast because he's a grown man. He thinks human cereal is a lot like kibble. He licks milk out of the bowl from force of habit. Then he's told to move it when he's sleeping on the floor when Hilda's vacuuming. I think I like this story. He's told that if he's gonna be a human, he has to be productive and get a job. I guess he's only being told this as a punishment for all the times he's annoyed them, because that doesn't require it. But he's not gonna get a job, logically, because he wouldn't have anything to put on a resume. No one would like him in a job interview. He doesn't have any really recent mortal education. Isn't that obvious? He somehow has trouble walking, even at this point. He rubs against a pole because he had an itch on his face. While I understand why this was written, he wasn't like this when he was a human in the 90s comic. I liked how cool he was there. Then he tries to jump after a bird and catch it, and I'm really smiling right now. Why can't the comic always be charming like this? See how much better it instantly gets after ditching the cheap drama? This is still dark because Salem's being embarrassed and struggling, but it's at least funny dark. It's amazing that this is by the same writer. Zelda warns him that he's making people nervous and he apologizes. Then he bats at some hanging cloth at the library. They didn't manage to get any job applications, and he gets splashed with snow. and licks his hand. It's not good slapstick if I didn't get to see the snow on them. Sabrina gets insulted for what she did for Salem and apologizes. Then Salem realizes that he's back to being a cat. For no reason. When she's impossibly powerful, and the transformation spell was supposed to be permanent. I guess this is bad news for the merman. This is forced, but at least he's back to being a cat and happy. She thinks that if she kept practicing magic, she could make a transformation permanent. So she realizes that she can do anything. Every witch can. Why make the other witches weaklings out of nowhere just to make the main character the omnipotent one? It's just forced. This had to happen to give her an excuse to start practicing magic again. But it wouldn't happen. Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 83. Sabrina sits on a parked bench where she could be spotted having magic between her hands any second. She forgot how much she missed the feeling of magic running through her fingers. It would have feeling? It'd have to be heat that she's feeling. What substance would it even have? Nanomachines? Since she experienced the last issue, the only reason she'd want to make Salem a human permanently when he said he wanted to be a cat is that she wants to prove she could do the impossible. Then Hilda tells her that she's found the perfect tutor for her. If she studies with him, she won't have to attend charm school anymore. Even though she knows Sabrina can do the impossible with magic, obviously she doesn't need a tutor anymore. And she was worried about the kind of things Sabrina could do with her magic if she's not careful. So there's no reason she'd want to get Sabrina better at magic. It's not like Sabrina hates charm school. Sabrina angsts and then figures that it's not so bad because Landra and Shinji aren't talking to her anymore anyways, so what difference does it make? They're not her real friends if they're doing that. Being completely sociopathic towards her when she had a traumatic experience. I guess they will forgive her, because otherwise them being all written to form a resistance together would be pointless. Hilda thinks it's great that Sabrina's tutor is a recluse because the council has been keeping a close eye on Sabrina, so if they find out she's trying to hone her skills, they'll become more paranoid. But obviously if they're keeping a close eye on her, then they'll see her wherever she goes. So they'll find out about the tutor, recluse or not. It could easily be explained away that they stopped spying on Sabrina because she went a month without magic. But even then that'd be stupid. Then any witch that was in trouble could go a month without magic, and then abuse it all they want. She goes to the tutor in the enchanted forest, where she couldn't even fly here with her broom. She spends an hour climbing, as even she wonders how she could train with magic here. She knocks on the mushroom house and gets caught in a net and called an intruder who shouldn't know about this place. So how did Hilda know about this place? Thankfully, when he gets told that she's a student, he hugs her and apologizes. He thinks that she's his new servant who's gonna sweep with the broom just fine. If he wanted a servant, why didn't he just tell Hilda to zap up a servant for him? He tells her to get inside before she gets too cold, even though it's hot out. She thinks he's crazy and reveals that he can read minds. Apparently, mind reading is forbidden. I don't remember that. It makes sense, logically, but it's too late now. And he must be really powerful since he's in the forest and still uses magic. But what would make some witches more powerful than others? It's not like Sabrina's other relatives are super powerful. What causes witches to have more midichlorians than everyone else? That's what this is reminding me of. He offers her tea and tells her to make it cold, even in an enchanted forest. She says she'll summon a quick ice spell that she cools down with in the summer. She can't even cast a basic spell here. Must be one enchanted forest considering how omnipotent she's been. You know, even though she's more powerful than 6 of the council members combined. How is he more powerful than her? I don't care how much he's trained with magic, that wouldn't increase the amount of magic he has. 2 hours later, she passed out from exhaustion. He tells her welcome back and says that he passed. He's nice enough to say that she passed, even though she didn't use magic to make the tea cold. He says that if she had waited for the tea to cool, she would have had much more energy saved up for future activities. Well, how's she supposed to know that she was supposed to do that? He should know that she thinks she's supposed to obey his every command. He's not even decent enough to warp her home and force her to climb down the cliff instead, because he's a Rick-level sociopath. Even Rick treats Morty better. He could at least float her down. So why am I supposed to not hate this character in the story? Sabrina feels bad about having to lie to Harvey about why she's exhausted and wants to stay on campus. He thinks cruelly that because she lied to him, they can never really be together. Oh bullshit, Harvey. When you found out she was a witch in the sitcom, you broke up with her. Why is he being portrayed like he's in the right? I hope he isn't, because this isn't her fault. Well, maybe she could tell him that she's tired because she was climbing down a mountain, but she can't elaborate on that anyways. Sabrina gets a note from Shinji, which says that Landra found out from Zelda that she's back to using magic. And she tells him with a note that she doesn't want to be used for his resistance. So he thinks that she's just trying to make an enemy out of him. Granted, why wouldn't he be disappointed that she's refusing the call of a hero? But just give her time. Sabrina's told to scrub every inch of this room with a toothbrush until it shines. Sabrina wonders if this is another test of patience, since he said she needed patience earlier. He's like Yoda, complete with being short. I never saw Star Wars and saw how he acted as a teacher. If this is literally ripping off how Yoda was as a teacher, that's not creative. But I'm still interested because I'm not used to reading this. She decides to humor him and not use magic, and I get worried that it isn't really a test of patience and not using magic after all. That'd just be inconsistent and bad writing. She misses her charm school, and her teacher says she can't help reading her mind. Not since the beginning of the 90s comic have we seen witches accidentally using magic just because they wished something. She gets scared when she realizes that he knows about her thinking of the words "Four Blades Day" plot. But she wasn't being specific. Predictably, the Joker said he didn't want her to clean it with a toothbrush. He actually meant to give her a broom. He's a jerk for not saying to do that. She has no way of knowing she'd get away with not doing it the way he told her to. There's no way he actually confuses brooms and toothbrushes. I wonder if he's not actually her intended teacher. He thanks her, and thinks her powers of observation need work because she still hasn't noticed the stairs leading to the bottom of the cliff. So again, he's a jerk for not telling her this. And at least she's getting good exercise. This is good for athleticism. This story was about Sabrina trying to be immortal the whole time, and eventually getting back together with Harvey. It was suppressing how Landra mistreated her. This story was about Salem convincing Sabrina to change him back into a human. And the timing of this is the most ridiculous of all, because normally I'd never expect her to risk doing that, because she'd know that if anyone found out from the council, she'd get in trouble. And logically you'd think all of the witches would be spied on constantly, and somehow her transformation of them is temporary, which convinces her that she has to keep practicing magic to get better at it and make it permanent. It was a charming story. It was funny seeing that Salem was still used to being a cat. But it was annoying because every other time Salem turned back into a human in the comics, he had nothing but fun with it. He wasn't completely hung up on everything he learned to do as a cat. But it's good for making him feel better about turning back into a cat. It just doesn't make any sense that she'd change him back into a human after she had a traumatizing experience being forced to be in an observation cell by the council. If the queen told her to not use magic to avoid being under scrutiny anymore, why would she use magic again? Especially a spell like that. Wouldn't that mean she'd immediately be put under scrutiny again? Wouldn't she just be sent back to the observation cell? This was a needlessly depressing story about Sabrina being given a tutor for her magic by Hilda. Even though she didn't want her to use magic because she turned Salem back into a human and she didn't want her to be irresponsible with her magic. And she's already powerful enough as it is. So it's completely forced that she not only has this tutor, but he used her as a servant. And he's the worst teacher ever, expecting her to do stuff he didn't tell her to do. So that story sucked. I can't imagine why Hilda thought this was a good idea. Would she know him?